Pressure continues to grow on Boris Johnson by the hour, with reports that senior figures Michael Gove and Dr Liam Fox are urging the PM to quit. At PMQs earlier, Boris Johnson was asked if there are any circumstances in which he would resign.
If there were circumstances in which I felt it was impossible for the government to go on and discharge the mandate that we've been given. But frankly, Mr. Speaker, the job of a Prime Minister in difficult circumstances when he's been handed a colossal mandate is to keep going.
The last hour has brought more resignations from government, taking the total number of MPs who've left their roles since yesterday to 21. But Boris Johnson's promising to fight on and told MPs at Prime Minister's questions he has a colossal mandate from voters.
Senior cabinet ministers have met with Boris Johnson calling for him to step down. Boris Johnson has refused, saying that he will continue to focus on delivering for the public and addressing the hugely important issues facing the country.
Boris Johnson remains defiant and is vowing to carry on despite more resignations and some of his cabinet ministers pleading with him to go. The Prime Minister took the dramatic step of sacking Michael Gove from his top team last night, with number 10 describing him as a snake. Welsh Secretary Simon Hart is the latest senior figure to resign. Meanwhile, Attorney General Suella Braverman said she'll throw her hat into the ring for the leadership. Despite all of this going on around him, Mr Johnson says he's remaining focused on what the public needs.
I look at the issues that this country faces. I look at the pressures that people are under and the need for government to focus on their priorities, which is what we are doing.
Boris Johnson will resign today. A number 10 spokesman has confirmed he'll make a statement to the country later. It's understood there'll then be a Conservative leadership election and Mr Johnson will stay on as a caretaker Prime Minister until his successor is chosen. That process is expected to be completed by the time of the party conference in October. Well, this news comes after the Prime Minister hemorrhaged support among his ministers and MPs. More than 50 MPs have resigned from government or party roles in the last 36 hours. Former Health Secretary Matt Hancock says it's now important to pick a new Prime Minister who can unite Britain.
We need to make sure that in that future leadership election that we have a new Prime Minister who can unite North and South, who can bring the country together and deliver for people in these very tough economic times.
The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced his resignation in a statement in Downing Street.
I know that there will be many people who are relieved and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed.
The race for the Tory leadership is officially underway, despite Boris Johnson saying that he sought to stay in power in order to complete his obligations that he set out to complete in 2019. Whilst he has quit, he will still be the interim Prime Minister up until the October conference, according to the 1922 committee as well as the Tory party HQ. Now, this all comes about because over 50 ministers have quit from the Parliament since Tuesday evening after allegations of Chris Pincher came around, and despite Boris Johnson knowing what was going on. So what's going to happen now is that the amount of Tory MPs interested in the role will be whittled down, and as you see it on our social media channels currently, Ben Wallace is the bookies' favourite, well, according to Betfair, to be the next Conservative leader. These candidates will then be whittled down by not only the 1922 committee but also the Tory party HQ, and we should have a new Prime Minister in time for the October conference. Whether or not this will happen or not is something to be told, and whether or not Ben Wallace will stay as the favourite is again something that will develop over time.